White Sox fans, and welcome to Sox On Tap Sunday Funday. It's Tony Marchese, and today I am joined by Chuck Naso. Chuck, it's been a long time. I think you haven't been here since last August. It's great to have you back on the show, and we're talking about a White Sox winner for the first time in what feels like forever. How you doing, Chuck?
You know me, I'm contractually obligated to come on this show only for White Sox winners. So that's why I've held out until now.
I don't think you've ever talked about a White Sox loss on here, not once. And that's probably you're probably the only person who's done that on the Sox on Tap show, Chuck. So I'm happy to have you on board here to talk about another White Sox winner. Like I said, it's been a rough week. 10 losses in a row. Finally, get one today in walk-off fashion. How are you feeling right now as a White Sox fan?
It feels like the weight has been taken off my shoulders, just in terms of the short term right now. Long term, obviously, there's still a ton of concerns. Looking ahead, I mean, we got a tough twin series coming up, but if it's anybody but the Rays, I'm pretty excited. So let's hope they can, string together some wins, and maybe we're talking about something else, 2, 3, 4 weeks from now. But obviously right now, there's the hard truth of being 8-21 and, start talking about trading guys and the future of this team, because we're in a really bad spot. But also, you never know with a game like today, maybe we string together, 10 to 12 wins in a row. That's just kind of how baseball works. But it's easy to be super down right now. That this team has given us no reason to be anything but down. But today was a huge positive, and a good way to start the series versus Minnesota this week.
Absolutely. And I sort of echo your sentiment on this. You got to start somewhere, as I believe I've seen a couple of times floated across the Twitterverse. You have to start somewhere. But again, there's a lot of reasons for concern with this ball club, Chuck. We saw it through the weekend. This is obviously our first show of the weekend, so we're going to break down a little bit of what happened in some previous games against the Rays. Sox finally get their first victory against the Rays today by a final score of 12-9. It was ugly entering today, very ugly, for many different reasons. And I think the first thing that I want to get to is the thing that everybody's been talking about, Luis Robert Jr., and what the hell happened with him yesterday. Because I think that sort of lends itself into today's ball game, Chuck. Luis Robert, I'll add the junior, comes into yesterday's ball game, first inning, little dribbler, wasn't fully running to first base, goes out to start the second inning. Next time through the order, he's pulled for Oscar Colas. Chuck, what are your thoughts on the Luis Robert situation? Just sort of take me through that play. What were you thinking?
We've given this guy the benefit of the doubt up until now. And this start this season has really made me just be truthful on the timeline. And, I know Luis Robert has gotten injured running hard to first base before. I think on a routine ground ball, there's a time and a place to jog that out. And, maybe the legs are barking a little bit. I'm fine with. But on a ball that you can clearly beat out with your elite speed, you are caught jogging down the line. And I don't care if your hamstrings are tight. To me, it's either you're good enough to play and run hard when you need to run hard, or you should be on the fucking IL. That's the two things. Like, you need to tell people if those hamstrings are hurting you, because you're a detriment to this team injured. We saw it today. You put Adam Hazley in this lineup, and he was just a spark plug of energy of a guy who wanted to be in there and wanted to take the opportunity today. And that propelled the team to a victory, as far as I see it. A guy going, what do you go 4 for 5 today? And then you see, just Luis Robert just kind of wants to go up there, collect his paycheck, and do TikToks and jog to first. Like, that's just not it. Not for a team that's struggling like this. I can live with being 8-21 and watching guys bust it down the line and going the extra mile. I can't live with guys making a mockery out of the team we root for every day. We watch this team every day. And then I had to start fielding text messages and phone calls and tweets all from what's going on with the White Sox, from people that don't even care about the White Sox, from not even from Chicago that are texting me about it. That is so fucking embarrassing that I had people reaching out from New York City, from Boston, being like, what is wrong with your team? Because we're that bad that it's showing up on their timelines. That is so embarrassing. And these guys need to take a look in the mirror and really like figure out that they're making an embarrassment of themselves and this whole city as a whole and this fan base, So
Very, very well said, Chuck. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here in 2023 in the middle of what should be the best years of White Sox baseball, what was promised to fans, and talking about whether or not guys know how to hustle, know how to play hard, do very fundamental, rudimentary baseball things that, hell, you were probably told this when you were 10 years old. And there's still question marks at the major league level is very infuriating to watch. I know you're as tuned in as most other diehard White Sox fans are, but you speak the truth. I get the same messages from people, who tune in to White Sox games sort of casually, asking me throughout this 10-game losing streak, what the hell's going on. But I don't think that there is one baseball media company out there over the last week that hasn't taken a shot across the bow of the Chicago White Sox. That's a problem. That's a problem. I mean, you're getting it from everyone, from every direction. I believe it was either this morning or yesterday, Ken Rosenthal is writing about how and who the White Sox are going to trade at the deadline. I don't think any of us wanted to be in this seventh circle of baseball hell at this point, but you're definitely correct with this. It's embarrassing. And I thought what was even more embarrassing was what ensued in the postgame afterwards. You have Pedro Grifol come out there and talk about it was a miscommunication problem. Luis Robert didn't let anybody on the training staff, didn't let him know, didn't let any of the bench coaches know that he was dealing with a hamstring issue. I don't want to justify a guy that's on this team who doesn't even know his bench coach's name sitting there and talking about how hard he works. That it's backwards to me, Chuck. I don't understand how he could get into a press conference with the media following this game and sort of laugh. I'm talking about Luis Robert Jr. here. Sort of laugh off questions about his effort. And then it be talked about today prior to the game after he's already been benched and not in the lineup. You see Adam Hazley's name in there. Everybody's sort of wondering why the fuck Adam Hazley's playing center field and leading off today. If it was a hamstring issue, I don't think you see Luis Robert pinch hit today, although he was taken out immediately for a pinch runner. But I'm just sort of mystified by this entire exchange that went down. It was the definition of a clown show, in my opinion. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on it.
I have two things. I think if Luis Robert was, a true man and somebody who really respects his coach in the clubhouse, he would have went to the media and said, I didn't run that ball out. I screwed up. Even if his hamstrings were tight, I would have never had an excuse in that situation. Even if I tore my hamstring, I would be like, I should have ran that ball out. I messed up. And then, maybe you get the MRI after and it says your hamstring's messed up. But don't go the first thing to the media and say my hamstrings were tight when everyone's calling you out. Just be accountable. Say you screwed up. Like, this is what we have. Now we have to deal with, little prima donnas on the team and putting them on the bench and benching them, which is good. I'm happy Pedro did it because this wasn't under the last regime. Stuff like this was not going down, and it has to go down with the young team because these guys want to be treated like veterans. Well, guess what? You need to act like veterans before you get treated like veterans. That's what I think. And, I think a lot of the issues with Tony La Russa leading this team was that he was a veteran clubhouse type of guy, a veteran-led clubhouse type of guy. Like, you look at the Astros. Do you think Dusty Baker's really putting in a ton of work in that clubhouse? I think that's a player-driven, veteran smart ball player driven clubhouse. And I think anybody could sit at the end of that dugout and lead that team to a championship last year, including Tony La Russa. And even if he made bad decisions. But I think this team needed a little bit of a babysitter and a little kick in the ass, and Pedro brought it yesterday. The other thing that he said was that he was hustling out plays the day before. I don't know from the top of my head. I think he went 0 for 4 the day before. I don't really remember anything where he was really hard sprinting down the line that would have really aggravated the hamstring. So that was my only other question looking back on this. But I just wish there would be more accountability and you get Lance Lynn right after talking about, how he gave up a no-hitter and doesn't give a fuck because he lost. Another day when he was on the radio, he goes, yeah, but I got lit up. Like, just being accountable. Just be like, you know what? I fucking lost today for the team. Even Graveman did it with the Paredes thing. You could tell those are the guys I want on the team going forward. I don't want to see the guys that are going to come up with excuses anymore. And hopefully this is just a learning lesson for Robert, because he is young, and nobody's ever held him in check. He's probably been told he's the best player on the ball field since he was, 10 years old. So you need somebody to keep you in check. And this is kind of a wake up call for him. And hopefully it wakes up his bat and, he learns from this.
I was also a fan of Grifol pulling him. And I think, outside of Grifol getting ejected and actually showing some emotion, I believe that was on Friday night for his second ejection in a row. Another weird White Sox factoid. I think he might be the first manager ever to get ejected in back-to-back games before winning back-to-back games. That could be like a whole MLB thing, but I know it's probably the case for the Chicago White Sox. Somebody will have to fact check that, but between Grifol getting ejected and, protecting his guys on the warnings that were issued on Friday and then benching Luis Robert Jr., I was a big fan of those moves. It's unfortunate that we're in the situation that we're in, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure you probably share this as well, where there isn't that level of accountability amongst these star players that were brought in by Rick Hahn to do this. One of the reasons that Jose Abreu was such a legend in Chicago was because you didn't have this type of problem with Jose Abreu. He was accountable. He got in the lineup every day. I'm sure his hamstrings were barking at him at some point. I'm sure some of those pitches that came up and in on Jose Abreu stung a little bit. We haven't seen that kind of toughness and accountability from some of these other younger guys, Chuck. And I think that that's sort of been an issue that's reeked throughout this organization for quite a while now. So maybe it's a wake-up call for him. I absolutely hope it is. He's played outstanding defense so far this year. Was hot at the plate to start the season. Something needs to turn around with him. I hope this isn't the type of thing that turns into 2 more days off and then, an IL stint down the road, because we've already seen that with a couple of these guys. They can't afford to lose Luis Robert while Yohan Moncada is still down. Although I was impressed with Adam Hazley today. He's got some MVP chance going for him. And, I think that, I said it earlier, have a day, Adam Hazley. He filled in fantastic for Luis Robert Jr. today. And Chuck, that's a sign of a ball player that wants to do the most with his time and opportunity that he has. That was a great thing to see today. But back on the topic of Luis Robert for just one more second, we'll close this up. Do you see it turning around for him? Because the lack of accountability in the interview didn't sit well with me. I thought he sort of just laughed it off and sort of hid behind, I played hard yesterday, so I don't have to play hard today. And that's just a bad mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to have a behind closed door type meeting with Robert at some point about all this stuff. And, I think he's going to see it as a wake up call. I do want to see his overall approach at the plate get better. And until I see that, I don't know if he will be better at the plate, because me as a pitcher, if I saw his scouting report, it would just say, don't throw him a strike because he'll get himself out. Simple as that. You'll have him 0-1. And if you throw him a strike in an 0-1 count, you are, or any count after an 0-1 count, you are the dumbest pitcher in Major League Baseball, because he will chase anything low and out, anything out of the strike zone and get himself out. So I would just love to see his approach at the plate get better. I know we saw him take a walk. I don't even know if it was like these games are all blending together like 3 or 4 days ago, but I would like him to make an effort to see more pitches, take more walks, even if it leads to those early Moncada days where he was taking strike three a lot because he was seeing the zone so well. I think it will pay off in the long run, especially if he's going to be at the top of the order. We just can't have these 1 or 2 pitch at bats. Just can't happen, especially with Anderson back now, because Anderson's the type of guy who's going to see maybe 3 or 4 pitches in at bat, but he's going to get hits because he's not chasing those balls that are way out of the strike zone. I think the difference between Robert and Anderson to me is that Anderson's not really chasing those sliders way out of the strike zone. Robert's chasing those pitches, which is the big issue for him. Anderson's always going to try to get his pitch. He may not walk, but he's always going to get his pitch and get a hit. If you're going to be that type of guy, you got to have that type of approach that Anderson has. So hopefully we see a little bit of a structured at bat from Luis Robert in the future.
I agree with you there, Chuck. The Yoan Moncada comparison to the early days is certainly interesting, and we've sort of seen Eloy Jimenez go through somewhat similar struggles chasing sliders low and outside. He seems to have sort of curbed that for right now, and hopefully, a teammate or a hitting coach can identify this with Luis. This is something that, Steve brought up on this show a couple of weeks ago. And I think we also had a hearty discussion on it at the start of the season in terms of Luis Robert batting in the 2-hole behind Tim Anderson before Anderson went down. You can't go through that first inning and lend your opponent, and especially the starting pitcher, to get through an inning on 4 or 5 pitches. And the two of them stacked together sort of provide an optimal experience if you're an opposing starting pitcher facing the Chicago White Sox. We'll see how the lineup shakes out on Tuesday. Tim Anderson is expected back. I think you gave a little foreshadowing to that. That's some news and notes on the White Sox. He looked okay down in Charlotte. I don't have his full stat line, but making his rehab appearances down there this weekend, he should be back on Tuesday as reported already. Chuck, I want to talk about just some starting pitching and Lance Lynn yesterday. This is a guy that everybody out there is saying he's absolutely cooked. You had Steve Stone telling Lance Lynn via, the radio appearance he was on that he needs to eat some salad. Lance Lynn was out there yesterday and looked like a guy who never wants to be told he needs to touch a leafy green ever again. Just absolute stud stuff. Vintage Lance Lynn yesterday, up until he was pulled from that game, and the White Sox absolutely blew what was a special start from Lance. Any thoughts on Lance's recent start? And Chuck, you're a pitcher. I'd love to hear from you on this one. How would you go about the remainder of this season if you're Lance Lynn after this rough start?
I'm still pretty worried about Lance Lynn, if we're being honest, just on the velocity forefront. I think early on when he was first on the White Sox, I think you saw a lot of 95 to 97. And right now we're seeing a lot of 93, 94. And when you're the type of guy who is throwing 3 types of fastballs with the fastball, sinker, cutter, you're really depending on velocity to win these at bats. And I think what we're seeing a lot of his early season, failures have been just because, that fastball isn't getting on guys as much as it used to. Yesterday, I thought that he had a pretty big strike zone. They gave him about, 3-4 inches off the plate, and he was doing what a veteran does in that situation, just keeps pounding that zone on the outside when they give him that extra 3 or 4 inches. And that's what a veteran does. And that's what a crafty guy like Lance is going to do. Do I think he's going to be, what he was in 2021 for us? No. What I'm hoping is that he can battle and give you 5-6 innings of 3-4 run ball, and this offense wakes up and can get behind him and score some runs in the future. That's what he should be. An inning eater, a guy that can, have one or two of these games every month, and hopefully maybe not as good as yesterday, but close to 1 or 2 of these games a month. And, maybe the velo comes back up as the season goes on and that arm gets going, it gets warmer out, and we see vintage Lance Lynn. But yeah, the velo really does have me quite worried with him out of more than anybody in the White Sox rotation right now, actually.
It's sort of the same thing that we've talked about a little bit here, Chuck, is when you're working at that velocity, you have to almost be pinpoint control. You mentioned Lance being a veteran. I think that lends itself well to the situation. He's going to get beat though. You're going to need run support for Lance out there almost each and every time. What he did yesterday, absolutely special. I'm glad he backed it up and continues to show emotion on this team. You also mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, just sort of that veteran presence and how he handled things in the post game. I'm not worried in that aspect. I think Lance will be able to sort of control his own narrative in terms of everything else and sort of eat those innings for us. But I don't see him as a front of the rotation starter going forward for the rest of the season. That's up to Dylan Cease. It's up to Lucas Giolito, in my opinion. Some of the younger guys to handle that craftiness and high velocity, high intensity games and go 7 or 8. Whereas, I sort of expect Lance, like you said, to be a 5-6 inning guy and just sort of get you through. But, I'll take starts like yesterday. Just wish that it didn't implode. We'll move into today's ball game, Chuck. Just incredible to see a win. That's my first thing I have to say about this. Incredible to see a win because it feels like it's been forever. I know some people were out there joking around saying they wanted to see this thing go 15 games. I don't know if my heart could take it. I'd probably be on heart medication if it actually went that far. But walk-off fashion, I enjoy victory beers. I don't know about you, Chuck, but it feels better to drink a beer after your team wins a ball game on a Sunday afternoon and sit here and talk about it versus talking about yet another loss. Roller coaster of a game. Absolute roller coaster of a game. I thought Clevenger pitched pretty damn well. And then, the bullpen today, just all sorts of spotty. This thing was back and forth. Take me through just sort of your emotions throughout today's ball game and what you thought of Clevenger starting up until we get to the first reliever, which is Santos in the 6th inning.
Yeah, I thought Clevenger had some good words in the post game press conference in the clubhouse. He was talking about just forgetting all the analytical stuff and looking at shapes of pitches and trying to do too much. And he's just like, I'm just going to go out there and compete and throw the ball. And I think that's exactly what he did. And I think sometimes, in this newer age of baseball with all this technology and stuff, people are too worried about the spin and, the rotation and all of this crazy stuff. And they sometimes forget that you just have to go out there and compete with your stuff. Your stuff's going to be your stuff. How are you going to beat a batter every at bat? And I think Clevenger kind of just nutted up there, and he was beating a lot of these Rays guys. And the big thing I see with the Rays is they're hunting fastball, and he was showing that really good slider. He did get beat a couple times on, I think, the Walls and Rayleigh homer. I think the Walls pitch was just, right into his bat path, and Rayleigh was locked in today. But, I can live with Clevenger giving up 2 runs any day of the week at this point. It was 2 runs, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think Clevenger has shown a lot more than he has in previous years with San Diego so far, which is good to hear. I was talking to his agent in the off season, and his agent told me that, a lot of the issues with him in previous years stem from knee issues that he addressed and that he was pitching through in the playoffs last year. And you could definitely tell he looks a lot healthier. So honestly, with him healthy and when he's around the zone, he's got some of the best stuff on the team compared to a lot of these guys. So we need him to be at his best and see more performances like this in the future.
Yeah, final line on Clevenger, Chuck. 5 innings, gives up 7 hits, 2 runs, both earned. They came via the home run, both solo shots. Strikes out 8. His ERA sits at a 4.60.
How many walks?
Right now, just walked 1 batter today, Chuck.
That's the key to success.
Exactly. Exactly. The dreaded leadoff walk. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. It seems to bite this White Sox team in the ass multiple times per week, at least this season, Chuck, is the walks. And when you see today, the White Sox only give up 3 walks total. There's your ball game, in my opinion, as well. You can't be walking guys. Aaron Bummer with the one leadoff walk that turned into a disaster there in the 9th inning. That's or the bottom of top of the 8th inning. Sorry. That's where you get beat. That's where you get beat. So Clevenger did pitch very well today. You saw Santos come in, work a clean inning. Joe Kelly also worked a clean inning, struck out the side. It's good to see Joe Kelly doing that. I don't know about you, but this is a guy who came here and I expected big things from. Joe Kelly striking out the side against the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't think that could be understated.
Yeah, let's see more of that from him, because if, we keep losing, he's a valuable trade asset. And if we keep winning, he is a key piece to this bullpen. The big thing with the pitching staff right now is the walks. And the issue is there's so many walks is because these guys are afraid to make a mistake because, if your offense can only score 1 or 2 runs a game, you have to be perfect. And what does being perfect cause? Walks, because it's very hard to be perfect in Major League Baseball without walking people. So it'd be nice to see the offense, kind of put up more runs every day and give these guys a chance to attack batters more often, because I think a lot of what we're seeing right now is a lot of scared activity out of the bullpen where they feel like they can't make mistakes. And that's what leads to these walks. I had an old bullpen coach in college who would make us run. You had to run gassers on Monday for every leadoff walk, 2-out walk, and I think 2-out walk. Or leadoff walk, 2 outs, and leadoff walks and 2-out walks. And if the run scored, then you also had to cash in 5 more because of that. And our team learned from that because we didn't want to run. So, and it pays off. I think we had one of the lowest ERAs in the Big Ten that year because guys were so scared to walk people. I remember actually my roommate had a 3-1 count on a guy. It was going to be a leadoff walk, and we were winning like 10-1, and he just threw it down the middle and gave up like a 500-foot home run because guys will get themselves out if you're around the zone, or you're the Rays that just hit a home run every time you put it in the zone.
You think that they should institute this? Is this like a thing that Ethan Katz should try and do? Because we've seen way too much of this so far for the White Sox, and the gassers seem to work for you guys. I don't know if it works at the major league level or if they've got some provisions in these contracts, Chuck, that tell them that they can't.
Yeah, maybe if they take money out of their contract for every 2-out walk and 2 walk, we can lead off walk.
I don't think the MLBPA is going to be too happy with those provisions in the contract, Chuck, but we'll see. Might be a strategy for Rick Hahn going forward. You never know. The other guy who walked a batter today, Chuck, Reynaldo Lopez, he was roughed up. Only went a third of an inning, gives up 3 runs, walked the guy, and then gave up a bomb. I'm a little concerned about Raylo. He's been somewhat overexposed, I think, in his more high leverage role than I really expected him to be entering this season. He left the game sort of soon with the trainer today, Chuck, and I think Grifol said afterwards that just a little tired. It's cold out there, bicep. Are you concerned about Reynaldo Lopez as much as I am right now?
In the immediate future, I'm a little bit concerned just because, we've had to use him so much in high leverage situations. And it's just a very different thing for him to be doing a lot of. And I think in the future, obviously when Liam and Garrett come back, this bullpen is in a much, much, much better position to succeed with those 2 guys at the end of the bullpen. You have Reynaldo having high leverage 7th, 8th inning appearances instead of these multi-inning, multi-game over the weekend type appearances where you want him to be that 101 mile an hour guy that we saw, in Houston and early on in the season. But when he has to pitch in every game or every other day, you're not going to see that from him. You're not going to get that explosiveness. And I think the more and more premium arms we add to this bullpen as the season goes on, that's where I see the streak coming into effect. Once we can shore up this bullpen with those 2 arms I just talked about, I really do see this being a different team because right now it feels like we're just trying to bridge the gap to a guy that's normally going to pitch in the 7th inning for us.
Treading water.
Yeah. And it's just like, you got to be perfect. Every game's 3-0 going into the 7th. And we got a bunch of guys that just aren't used to the roles they're in, or they're pitching too much because we're light on arms. So it is good to see a guy like Gregory Santos kind of starting to take the next step. And it's good to see Joe Kelly back, because I think that was another guy that during this losing streak we really missed, because we had to put in, the Jake Diekmans of the world for multi-inning appearances, or, exposing Jimmy Lambert to 2 or 3 inning appearances where maybe he shouldn't have gone out for that 3rd inning. I am excited. I'm really excited to see when Liam and Garrett eventually come back, how this team proceeds, because I think that's when we're really going to be at full stride. Hopefully it's soon. If not, hopefully we can win some games and get close to 500 and kind of stay in it. Thank God the AL Central sucks this year. Because we still kind of have a chance. It's disgusting to say, we're 8-21, but you win 5 or 6 straight and you're kind of just back in the discussion again. Just got to keep treading water.
So it's interesting that you say that, because, talking to different folks around, White Sox diehard fans, whether you call it White Sox Twitter or just people you and talk to about this team who watch it every day, there's a lot of people who do believe that this is completely over. And I'm sort of not all there yet. Like I said, I've been rather positive about this team. This is the most negative I think I've personally felt, Chuck, about the Chicago White Sox in a long time. And I think that the future sort of looks bleak in the midst of a 10-game losing streak. The national media stuff that we talked about just, a little bit ago here on the show, coupled that with sort of some ending contracts for this season. And you look at the farm system and it's completely barren. I mean, the Charlotte Knights are basically a bunch of middle 30 age guys that are out there playing the outfield, that are projects signed from teams, or just, free agency that cast them sort of off. And you don't really have anything coming to help you right now. Top 3 prospects, I believe, have been injured all through April. It's been rock bottom. You're talking about how you can go in here and win 4 or 5 in a row. Maybe they have a stretch where they're 8 for 10. Our guy Johnny said this the other day, Chuck. Anything that they do from here on out can't be looked at as success until they dig themselves completely out of this hole. I tend to agree with that message, because they have dug this hole, or as we called it on the show just earlier this week, a crater. How do you hold out hope that that's going to happen? I mean, Liam Hendricks coming back, I think, is a huge shot in the arm. I agree with you there. Garrett Crochet, he threw, I believe, a scoreless inning in Birmingham today. First time for Garrett Crochet even ever pitching in the minors, and on his way back from Tommy John. Those are 2 big names that you're going to add to this bullpen. Tim Anderson's coming back. I think we still have some question marks around Yohan Moncada, and I've got some questions for you about Jake Berger in a few minutes here. But can you hold out hope for this team? I mean, we're closing April, first month in the books. Do you have any sort of confidence that you can tell White Sox fans, Chuck, that you're still in this?
I mean, for right now, what else are you to watch?
That's a great way to put it. That's
kind of where I'm at. It's like, what else are you going to watch? It's either going to get worse or it's going to get better. But I saw today at the end of that game, and I'm a recency bias type of guy. And those last couple innings, and even today's game in a whole, I saw a lot of really good at-bats versus a pitcher who normally I feel like we would struggle versus. What was his name? Rasmussen had, that big sweeper and sinker. And I thought a lot of guys were really, really, holding off on a lot of good pitches that were outside the zone today and having more structured at-bats. I saw a lot better at-bats from Oscar Colas, even though I know he struck out looking versus that dirty sweeper from Jason Adams late in the game. But I saw that single he had a really nice swing on. He looked better. I expect more from him in the upcoming weeks. I think he just kind of had to wet his beak a little bit and was trying to do too much, and he's starting to learn from his mistakes. I think that, I think you can only look at recency bias. And I think Tim Anderson coming back to this team really changes the lineup. I think if you put Tim Anderson at the top of the lineup with Benintendi batting in the 2-hole, maybe put Vaughn behind that, and then maybe let Luis Robert, kind of chill out in the 5th or 6th spot in the lineup. This lineup completely changes. You got a guy who gets on base a lot at the top of your lineup. Then you have somebody who takes a lot of pitches, will work the walk, will work the count, batting in the 2-hole. And I know a lot of guys have been negative on Andrew Benintendi, but he hasn't hit for power yet, but he's put up some of the best at bats on this team so far this season in terms of just pitch recognition and taking walks. That's what I'd like to see in the 2-hole. And then I think we're going to see Vaughn heat up. I think, one swing like today, we're going to see more and more home runs from this team. It just has to happen. The ball seems like it's flying a lot more this year compared to last year, where we were the team that was really flying out to the warning track more than anyone. I think that's what plays well with the Rays this year. If the juice balls are back, it kind of feels like it's playing in the Rays' advantage right now, because I don't know how you feel, but every time they hit a home run the past 2 weeks, it went like this far over the fence. If his name wasn't Randy Arozarena hitting that ball to fucking Mars last night, I think the juice balls are kind of back.
I would tend to agree with that. They haven't benefited Jose Abreu down in Houston yet, Chuck, but it seems like everybody else is getting the juice baseballs. I definitely think that's a thing. The White Sox just haven't put together good at bats throughout the course of the season, and when they have, they've been rewarded for it. And I like your take on Vaughn here. If he can heat up, that's a name in the middle of your lineup that can add a ton of runs driven in. I like the way that you sort of stated, how you would have your lineup here as well. I would do somewhat of the same thing. The bottom half of our order, Chuck, in my opinion, has really led to a lot of automatic outs that we should not have at this stage. It's sort of injury driven, but when you've got Colas, Andrews, Sosa, or some combination of Romy Gonzalez added in there, and even if Hanser Alberto comes back, I don't like seeing that cluster at the bottom of the order when you've got guys like Luis Robert, or even if Tim Anderson's here at the top, because you've got your 3 automatic outs, or what feels like 3 automatic outs, followed by a bunch of guys who aren't going to put together competent plate appearances. And all you have is the middle of the order. There's nobody on base for them. What have we talked about on this show a million times if you're listening to this? And Steve says this all the time. You got to hit the home run with runners on base. I don't care if Andrew Vaughn hits 4 or 5 solo shots in a week. I'd like to see crooked numbers. I love crooked numbers, Chuck. That's the name of the game here. So stack them the right way. I think that's going to be a big thing. One other note from today's ball game: no White Sox hitters struck out more than one time. That's big. What
were those at bat? I mean, I think the post-game show today I was watching, Gordon was talking. Gordon drives me nuts sometimes, but he was talking about the type of at-bats and the type of hits we were getting in that last inning are the type of hits that you see the Rays taking every time they're up there. They're just shooting the ball through the hole, getting the easy steal. Don't try to do too much. And I get it. It's very easy to say not to try to do too much when your team's struggling, because these guys are going to just try to, they're trying to hit the 10-run homer every time they're up there. Just use the other field. That's the biggest issue with Luis Robert right now. When Luis Robert's at his best, he is driving the ball to right center field, and then he pulls the shit out of the ball once every 10 times up there. That goes to Mars. It's just simplifying things, and I think we saw a lot of it in the last inning. I'm telling you, one inning leads to this. One inning will lead to more and more of it. So it's really good to see. I just want to see more of those at-bats.
I hope it's contagious as much as you say it's going to be. Last note on today's game, outside of Andrew Vaughn walking this thing off, which is cool and tough, is Adam Hazley. 4 hits today, reach base on a drop third strike, which you don't normally see. I understand the ball was wet. There's a little bit of weather that was in the area that sort of lent itself to that. Also takes a walk. He looked good at the top of the order. Would you start him again? Would you start him again this week?
You got to ride the hot hand. You know what I'm saying? Oh,
You're a
maybe
recency bias guy, so I'm just asking.
maybe Luis's hamstrings are a little tight on Tuesday, but yeah, if we see another, I don't know who's slated to start for the Twins on Tuesday, but it's not the worst thing in the world to ride the hot hand right here. Well, what else do we have to lose? You know, we're what are we 13 games under or something like that? Hazley looked good up
It's
there.
bad.
And even in spring training, and I don't take that too much into account, but his swing looked nice in spring training when you'd see him hit. I was always be like, wow, this guy was a former top 10 pick, great hitter of Virginia. Just hasn't found the right stride, and everyone talks about how good he was hitting down in Charlotte and the adjustments he made. And it really, I mean, that last at bat was really fucking impressive what he did versus a good left-handed pitcher who was throwing him.
He went down 0-2 quick.
And he was bearing, that guy was burying that slider versus him, and he's just kept in there, laid off of it a couple times, and drove it up the middle. And yeah, man, I want to see whoever's gonna, put their balls on the line every day at this point. Like, what else do we have to lose? We've seen the prospects enough, or the guys that were supposed to be the guys enough, to the point where I want to see W's at this point. I had the prospect years where I was excited to watch Luis Robert hit and stuff like that. Right now, I just want to see W's. So if Hazley's going to be hot for the next 5 games and then he weathers off, let him be hot in the lineup, and let's find a spot for him on the field, whether it be for in that hybrid role with Sheets, and Wright and Colas, or giving Benintendi a day off or two. Let's try to get him in there. Why not?
Love it. I mean, ride the hot hand, right? I mean, there's not much else. I agree with you. As I always say, victory beers taste better than misery beers. I want wins. I want wins as much as the next guy. And as you said earlier, what else are you going to watch? There's not much on through summer. So I enjoy baseball. I'm probably going to watch this anyway. I'd rather it be, some wind sprinkled in here. Sox are off tomorrow. Much needed off day, as we've talked about on the show. And I think for White Sox fans as well, probably a day away from this might be a good thing for everyone. But Tuesday, we'll be back. Michael Kopech takes the mound against Joe Ryan. I know you were looking for probables, Chuck. He's 5-0, 2.81 ERA, struck out 36 on the year, right-handed pitcher. So I would assume we're going to see somewhat of a lefty-heavy lineup. Maybe Gavin Sheets gets back in there. I'd expect to see Yasmani Grandal behind the plate. We'll see if Hazley's in there. Luis Robert will get an extra day tomorrow to rest his hamstrings. We'll see if he's back. But Tim Anderson will be back most likely at the top of the order. We'll see what kind of roster moves come from this, Chuck. Who are you expecting to get sent down?
Yeah, I think they're going to bring Alberto and Tim back on the major league roster. From what I've heard, it seems like Sosa seems like a prime candidate that's going to get sent down. Not too sure who else from that group. I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see if it's Romy Gonzalez, because he's played a very versatile role, but I don't know. Adam Hazley's sort of in that. Not after today.
I know, but he has that outfield to him, that position mix, which helps, even though he can't catch the ball today. Yeah, it's a tough decision. I mean, I think Romy's definitely the next guy up after that. I think Sosa just really struggled, but big hit in the ninth today, thank God. I think he just needs to keep seeing pitching down in AAA until he can kind of figure it out here at the major league level. But I am excited for Tim to be back. Like we talked about, you talked about that black hole at the end of the lineup. Taking one of those guys out of there and putting Tim at the top of the lineup, and then you only have one of two, Colas and Andrews, who both kind of looked like they took the next step to being a little bit better this year. Today, this lineup looks completely different without 3 black holes at the end of the lineup. I'm excited for Tim to be back. I think it's a huge, huge thing for this team.
I agree. Any series predictions against the AL Central division leaders in the Minnesota Twins? This is going to be a big series, Chuck. I didn't think that we would be talking about big series in May, especially at the front end of May. But it feels sort of make or break to me, right? Like if you walk out here and get swept by Minnesota, things are going to be even bleaker. I think
Yeah.
we'll get more of those texts from people about how bad this is. Then again, on the opposite side, if you go and you take 2 of 3, if you put together your first back-to-back win, or maybe start yourself a little winning streak here, the vibes on this could completely change, especially with TA back. Hopefully everybody else stays healthy, but it feels at this juncture sort of like a make or break series, I think, for the 2023 White Sox. I hope they ride the positive momentum, but I'm curious to see what your predictions are.
Yeah, you got to get 2 out of 3, especially with C's on the mound in game 2, correct? I feel like you gotta steal. You gotta get 2 out of 3 and at home. We need to start playing like we're at home. I'm sick of teams coming in here and being like, oh, it's home run derby. We get to play at the Cell today. I think we just need to start taking some pride in winning home games. I'd really like to see C's, dominate. I think that I'm kind of seeing him dominate in that game too, in the series. I would like to see him just compete more with his off speed in the zone. I think the biggest issue is he gets hit a little bit with his slider in the zone once or twice when it's not as sharp, and he kind of shies away from inviting contact. And what you saw in that first game of the season versus the Astros was he was just barreling his curveball and his slider over for a strike, and those guys were getting themselves out early in the counts, which was leading him to get later into the later innings of the game. So I'd like to see C's compete. I don't know who's game 3,
Giolito, and they've got Pablo Lopez on the mound, who gave the White Sox fits. So
you got to beat Lopez or Ryan in one of those games, and you absolutely have to win the game with Dylan Cease on the mound. We got to steal one with one of their 2 big guys on the mound. For those 2 games with the Ryan and Pablo Lopez starts and the Dylan Cease start, you got to win. I'm hoping for 2 out of 3. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Lucas this season compared to the last season. Velo's up. Kind of just seems like he's pitching more when he's getting beat. He's getting beat on bad pitches. He's not getting beat on consistently. I think he had that. I remember that like absolute tank he gave up to Rayleigh was a bomb. But it was just a bad pitch. It wasn't like he was trying to compete with a hard fastball in the zone. He just threw a bad changeup and the guy hit nukes off of it. I can live with that. I would just like to see these guys stay in the zone more. Like Kopech, like limit the walks, offense, score some runs, give these guys some breathing room. Yeah, I'm really hoping for 2 out of 3 and, taking this momentum to the next step for the next series.
I'll ride with you, Chuck. 2 out of 3. We'll double down on that, and hopefully your bets cash like they did today.
Yep.
Last segment here. You got any picks to click before we get to the last little talk here, and then we'll close this up.
Yeah, my picks to click on the offensive side. Oscar Colas, I'm huge on him. I think he started figuring it out today. I think we're going to see a big week from him, especially versus a lot of right-handed pitchers. I think he's a good matchup for Joe Ryan on Tuesday. I think that's a really good matchup for him. Kind of throws that floating curveball. I think his bat path will run into it. Pitching side, I think we're going to see a big start from Gio. I really liked he's fucking biting his glove that he didn't want to leave the game the other day. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see scared eyes anymore on this team. I'm sick and tired of seeing Aaron Bummer walk out there and bitch and be scared every 2 seconds when he comes into the game. Drives me nuts. I was in his space last night. He comes out there, he sulks, and then you know what he does right in the first batter, I think, because there was a guy in second yesterday. He doesn't give him looks at second base, and he easily takes third base on him. I'm so sick of it, man. It's such a prima donna, scared.
Do you ever talk to co-host on this show, Sean Roberts? You guys say the exact
he likes my
things.
tweet. He has liked my tweets on this, so I'm guessing we're in the same mindset. But you would think if guys consistently steal bases on you, maybe give them different looks at second base. I don't know, because like if I read the scouting report on Aaron Bummer, I would take a base every time he looked at me once, because that's what he does. And he constantly comes in with a bad attitude. You know, I hate James Karinchak, and I
I
hate the
do as
Cleveland
well.
Guardians, and I hate fucking Class A, but at least those guys look like they have fucking stones when they come into the game. You know what? They want to win. They're not scared. And when they make mistakes, they're upset, but they're fucking pissed. Like, I don't want to see you sulk. I want to see you pissed and like, what are you going to do about it next time you're out there? But it looks like guys who want the ball in that situation. That's what I want to see from my team.
Very well said. I'm firmly in this camp with you as well. I'm not a big James Karinchak guy, but I don't know if it's just I haven't seen this outside of Liam Hendricks with the White Sox, like a
Yeah.
guy that comes in out of the bullpen who looks
Well, like Joe Kelly today, he looked like he wanted
he
the
did.
ball.
He did.
You know,
Joe Kelly looked like he wanted the ball. When Kopech would come in out of the bullpen, same thing.
Yeah.
He looked like
Yep.
he wanted the ball, looked like he wanted to be in that situation. Every time Aaron Bummer trots in and out of the bullpen, it's sort of just like deer in the headlights. Why am I here?
And it's like, where can I throw the pitch just perfectly enough off the plate where I'm not going to get hurt.
Go beat somebody.
Fucking challenge them, man.
Yeah.
You know what's scary when you're a hitter is a guy that's not scared of you. That's bad. Like, you don't want that. That's why these guys that are elite are among the elite, because they aren't scared to challenge you. When you know there's a guy who's going to play dilly-dally till he goes 3-1, and then he's going to, give you a nice sinker down the middle. Like, your plan's set in place before you even step foot in the box. I just want to see killer instinct more. And I thought we saw it from, the hitters with Andrew Vaughn. Like, that was some killer instinct type shit. We saw it from Kelly. I loved what I saw from Gio. I liked what I saw from Clevenger today. Clevenger just looked like he wanted to fucking compete. I just want to stop thinking about the metrics, stop thinking about the record, stop thinking about how many home runs you hit, and just figure out how to win fucking ball games. That's how you become, your stats will figure themselves out. When you become a baseball player who's just trying to help your team win, your stats will come with it. It will just happen magically. I don't know how many times I've seen it, but guys who just try to win games for their team, their stats usually are pretty good because their teams are winning.
Well said, Chuck. And I could not have said that better myself, but well said. Last little bit here I got. I believe that Chuck Garfien was talking on the postgame show about people who live bet the Sox. And I think I got a text from you at some point during today's baseball game. I think you were one of them. You might have been one of the only people that went and live bet the Sox there right before the ninth inning. How does that feel?
No, I have bad news.
You got bad news? Bad news for me?
I bet the Sox before the game, and I live bet the Rays 3 times between the seventh and eighth inning. So I did hit big because I believed in him before the game, but I also was ready for the heartbreak, and I came out a winner either way. I was going to win. If the Rays won, I was going to win money, but the White Sox won, and I won even more money. So I had a great day. Thank you to the Miami Heat, who I parlayed that action with today at plus 550. It was a great hit on the Barstool Sportsbook. Man, I'm going to go happy. I'm going to have a nice New York City Italian meal with my girl this week.
There you go. I thought you might have snuck one in there in the ninth.
You know what?
I haven't found anybody who has.
I'm a big voodoo guy. I actually put it on TV too on mute and started cooking dinner. And I saw a lot of good stuff happening out of the corner of my eye during dinner. And I kept my back to it because I am a creature of voodoo. I didn't want to mess with it. And lo and behold, I heard my fiance go, "Oh my gosh." And I was like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me," when Vaughn hit that homer. It's a weird thing, but baseball is a voodoo sport, man.
It is. I will tell you something. The first home run that I've seen the White Sox hit this season while I was sitting in my chair was Andrew Vaughn today. Every single other home run I have been out of the room for various different reasons. And during the ball game today, at one point, I had shouted over from the kitchen that Yasmani Grandal was going to leave the yard because I was in the kitchen, making myself lunch, or I don't know if you call it what you call the meal between lunch and dinner. But lo and behold, Yasmani Grandal did leave the yard. So I fully believe in this, Chuck. It is a very voodoo, superstitious sport. We all had to do our part today to get the White Sox over the hump and end the 10-game losing streak. I'm glad that you also believe in these different superstitions as much as I do, because I fully believe in these types of things. You got to do whatever you can to help your team get across and put one in the left-hand column. Chuck, always excellent talking with you. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you, and we'll close up shop here. Thanks again for hopping on Sox on Tap Sunday Funday and talking about a White Sox winner.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Chuck Naso on Twitter and in various background scenes of Barstool Sports. Hit me up if you ever have any needs for White Sox baseball talk. I'm always around to shoot the shit. Hopefully this leads to bigger things the next couple of weeks with this White Sox team, and we see some winners and maybe some baseball we can look forward to the rest of the summer. If not, sell everyone.
That's well said once again. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Sox on Tap Sunday Funday. You can find us at Sox on Tap. Be sure you go to ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Chuck, we'll close this down how we always do. White Sox forever.
Forever.